Welcome to programme. Hopefully you can stay with us for the full 45 minutes. The main talking points tonight: Celtic earn a hard-earned point against with 11 men on the pitch. It's a big week for Harder Midlothian with Aberdeen and Celtic on the horizon. And Mark Warburton, the Rangers manager, says he would welcome a sporting director. Just a few of the headlines, and of course we'll also look at the weekend's fixtures. Ruffy head to head with myself. He's out in front, but maybe this weekend I'll peg back a few points. The guests tonight, delighted to have three of them there. Ruffy is joined by Gordon Smith and of course Scotland's assistant coach Mark McGhee, looking resplendent, eventually getting here after plane worries down in London, but we're delighted you're here with us. There's so much to talk about. Three positive men on the panel tonight, and three men, two of them at least, who've scored a barrel load of goals against Ruffy. So that's the connection. That's not the initial question. Let's talk about last night. Celtic with a good point, Ruffy, 2-2 in Amsterdam. I don't think too many people predicted that. Did you?
No, I don't think we did. I think we said a draw would be a good result, and for a while there that I think a win looked on the cards. But if you'd asked Celtic before they went there, they would have settled for the draw. But again, you get greedy, and I think the disappointment would be to lose that goal at the end.
Yeah, well, the positives, 2 goals scored. The first one was a peach near Beaton, Gordon Smith.
I thought it was a great goal. I thought Chris Commons being back in the team, I thought was the right decision. Ronnie Deila, I can't understand at times why he doesn't play him. He's a creative player, and he created that goal really well. Beaton made a terrific run, and he'll only make runs if he knows that people can find him, because he's generally a sitting player, but I think he's been excellent this season, Beaton. I think he's been probably one of Celtic's most consistent players. The big problem Celtic have, Peter, is the fact that they can't seem to hold on to leads. You know what I mean? That they got the front again twice last night. I know when they lost the second goal it's because of the ordering off, but that didn't help, having to play with 10 men. But I do feel that that's a little fault in their game. Other than that, I think they're still a strong side. Yeah.
Do you guys play zonal marking?
We play a sort of combo of zonal marking and man marking, you know, so we do have people in zones, but we do allocate certain players to pick up the more dangerous attackers. Yeah,
it was a young Ajax side. Frank de Boer clearly wants to try and promote as many of the talented players that they have coming through their academy on a regular basis. They managed to fight their way back into the game, but again, the reason why I ask you, Mark, is because Celtic seem to... It's almost as if the Celtic fans are in fear, and it looks as if Celtic's back line's in fear any time they get a set piece against them in that final third.
Well, they clearly, the management, believe in zonal marking, and I think that it's something you have to work on. There are plenty very, very successful teams who use zonal marking, teams at club level, teams at international level. So it's not a system that isn't proven. I think it's just a system that you have to work on, that your players have to understand and have to get to grips with.
If I had maybe two negatives from the game, I think, tremendous for Ronnie Deila, proved a point. His team are capable of going and getting, a good performance away. The first point is Izagiri, Ruffy, for his antics actually going into that challenge when he knew he was on a yellow. But maybe for the manager, who had several warnings before he actually picked up his second yellow card, maybe he should have hooked him and said, listen, he's running a fine line here. We could be down to 10 men. Yeah. They could have had a 2-1 victory.
Yeah, but as Mark will tell you, that you're relying on the experience of the player himself. You're relying on him being sensible enough to know that he's on a yellow card, and it was a rash challenge. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, the manager could have made that decision. But I think at the end of the day, you're relying on the experience of him playing in European football. And seeing the game out, and not to make... There was no need to... It wasn't like a last-ditch tackle. It wasn't,
But that's the point, Ruffy. I would say that when I was coaching for a time there, I always said to players, if they got a yellow card, don't go into any more challenges. Just do not challenge. Just go and try and maybe win the ball, intercept it, whatever, but don't get into any more tackles, because you're running that risk. But I agree with you, Peter, they could maybe have made the change and brought on somebody else and said, well, he has a risk now, get him off.
The point I'm making on that, Mark, is not so much, and I think, Ruffy makes a good point, it's the player's responsibility. But there were one or two warnings that he wasn't actually paying any heed to the fact that he had a yellow card. That's where I thought maybe the manager would have intervened.
I mean, I think there are other variables. I mean, I think you've got to look at the actual player, how likely he is to make that other challenge. For instance, you might have a centre forward who's got a booking, and you know that the likelihood is that he's not going to get another booking. Whereas if you've got a fullback who's up against a winger who's constantly getting at him, chances are at some time he's going to have to take a risk, and therefore maybe he will get that other booking. So you have to really assess the situation individually. It's not always the same, but you know, they're absolutely right. The player himself, there's got to be alarm bells ringing in his head, and he's got to know that if he goes into any sort of challenge at all that isn't going to be totally legal, then he's at risk of being sent off.
And it's funny picking up on that point, because Gordon Strachan was obviously the match summariser trackside, Ruffy, and he talked about games sometimes are won and lost with personal battles, and he highlighted Izagiri as one of the key areas where, you know, he had a huge job trying to stop the flow of the wing play of Ajax.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think if you look at the Celtic team and you look at, if you pencil in a weakness, you know, as Izagiri, you know, because he likes to get forward, as you would expect him to do. You want him to get forward. I just think when he goes forward, there's not enough people covering for him. I think it's not his fault all the time. But defensively, it looks as if other teams have picked him out as, let's go down that channel.
Tell me about the goal, Craig Gordon.
Again, you know, just when you're talking about zonal marking, you know, for me, as soon as the ball was kicked, the whole defence went on top of him. You know, it didn't give him a lot of space to attack, you know, because he's waiting on people in front of him, at least one person going and heading the ball. But as you were talking about earlier, every ball that comes in there's not one person saying to themselves, right, I'm going to go and attack this ball. So if nobody attacks it and everybody leaves it, it then comes into his zone where he's got to make a last minute decision. I wouldn't have blamed them. If they'd stayed out and let him come and attack the ball, there would have been a problem.
But there's been this indecision for quite some time. It's not just as if it was last night. And I keep saying that, like, Craig Gordon's 6'4". If he jumps, he goes to about 8 foot. With his arms in the air, he goes to about 10 foot. Now, there's no reason, I don't think, with his strength and power, he cannot come out and at least maybe even punch the ball or get people out his way, just charge out there for his physicality, because the players in front of him aren't doing their job properly.
I mean, there's a bit of science. You know, we spend a lot of time on the training ground working out those distances, you know, so when you've got a free kick that's 40 yards out, there's got to be a clear understanding as to how far away, you know, from the goalkeeper. I mean, Alan knows this. As a goalkeeper, you know, he wants his back four on the edge of the 18-yard line, for instance, or he wants them on the penalty spot. And there comes a point where, if it's a deep enough free kick, they're going to be close enough to the goalie, but it's going to be difficult for him to come. I actually didn't see the goal, so I don't know exactly how far out it was when the kick was taken. But, you know, the defence have to know, and they have to be determined to keep that line, you know, and not to get too close to the goalkeeper and allow the goalkeeper to come. But sometimes it's just so deep they don't have a choice.
But he can't rely. The thing about it, Mark, is he's not relying on his defence at the moment because they're not doing their job. You take the example that the Aberdeen winning goal last weekend, last Saturday, was the fact it was about 4 yards out. And it wasn't a header either. It was a side-footed ball in. So and the ball was played from a free kick for just over the halfway line.
Yeah, it travelled a long way.
So you're looking at a scenario there. I think that it could come because he's a top-class goalkeeper. He's still making great saves. There's no doubt about that. But that other side of his game, I think he has to come and take more responsibility.
I mean, it's a great thing for the back four, for the goalkeeper, as you know. For the back four, if you've got a goalkeeper who comes in amongst the back four and takes things,
But we already had the discussion that he's not got a settled back four. He's got two centre halves in there who possibly he doesn't know. Whereas to go back to, like,
that's why he has to do it.
If you're Jim Leighton and Big Alec and Willie there, they would play with each other that long. They know the strengths and the weaknesses. They know when a ball's coming in there, Big Alec's going to win it. So I'll just bide my time. You know, I have to say, I thought that delivery last night was very good.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing. The delivery, you know, it can arrive. It depends how it arrives. You know, whether you can actually, as a goalkeeper, as you know, if you can actually go for it, because it's not arriving maybe 10 feet in the air that you're talking about that you can go and take it. It's arriving down in there somewhere, and although it's
it's one of these ones that if nobody goes and wins it, and it's left to you. I mean, how many times have you saw a free? There was a free kick last night in one of the European games, went straight in.
Straight.
Yeah.
Because because nobody took the decision to win
That's
it.
right.
I think what was more worrying for me was Mark McGhee actually looking at Ruffy as if to say, you know, when a good goalkeeper comes for cross balls. Ruffy's never come for a cross ball in his life. I don't know why Mark McGhee looked at him there. Just Gordon McQueen in front of him. He didn't need to come for a cross ball. We're going to talk to Mark about Scotland. There's two huge games coming up. Of course, the manager is confident we can still get into the playoff mix. So we'll talk international football. We'll hear from Rangers boss Mark Warburton. We'll look at the fixtures. We'll get the head-to-heads between me and Ruffy from the Premiership, the Championship, League One and League Two. It's all to come in the next part of the football show. Welcome back to Peter and Ruffy's Football Show. We have an extended programme tonight and delighted we have three top guests. As ever, Ruffy's here with us. Gordon Smith joins us Friday alongside the Scotland assistant coach Mark McGhee. And let's talk Scotland because it's huge. The next two games, there's an air of confidence, defiance that Gordon seems to have, that, you know, he's trying. It's almost as if people need to be convinced we are not out of it. There's still a chance for us for the playoff mark.
I don't know either confidence or defiance. I think optimism. I think we're still optimistic. We know, and we've known since the group was drawn, that the Poland game would be critical in some way. Obviously, we all hoped that it would be to get the automatic place, but we knew that somewhere down the line, we were going to have to win this game. And I think that's therefore no different. The stakes are different in the sense that we're playing for the playoffs, but I think we're prepared for that, and I think that we have optimism because we've seen how the boys have performed over the tournament, and I think that we believe there is a performance that at Hampden with the supporters behind us as they've been unbelievably. I think that we feel that we can get to Poland. So, you know, there is optimism.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it last week on the programme. The Germans, not that anybody expected us to beat the world champions, but when we were looking at the lineup, I mean, everybody apart from Hector had a Bundesliga medal or a Champions League medal or a Super Cup or a World Cup medal. It was, I mean, they were incredible. I mean, it was just at times a joy to watch them. And again, we managed to get 2 goals back against them.
It may have been a joy for you to watch them. I preferred not to look. Brilliant players, you know, and even some of them. I mean, I thought that on the night Muller didn't have his best game, and I think he's probably the best of them all. Fantastic players and a fantastic team. Their movement, you know, their first touch, however the ball arrived, they took it under control and immediately moved it on to one of their teammates. You know, a real lesson to any of us in terms of that sort of quality of football. Fantastic performance, but of course, you know, our minds, in a sense, regardless of the way we went about the game and the nature of our performance, our minds really were distracted a little bit by what happened in Georgia. And really, I think that's where, you know, it was for those 2 games. The disappointment was there, and whatever happened against Germany really, you know, in a sense, was irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've had a chat about it. I don't think any player goes in after losing to Germany and is, you know, on a complete downer for that. Did you sense that the real pain with the players was not being able to produce what we hoped for in Georgia?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and I think that, you know, I've heard several things said, including that old one about, you know, the players looking in Georgia as if they didn't really care, or they, you know, and, you know, there couldn't be anything less true. You know, the nature of the games were different. You know, Germany play a game, you know, people say to me, but against Germany, you know, players were chasing people and getting after people and that. Well, you know, Germany set up in such a way that there's space around you. You know, and the German players over there, so you have to chase them. You know, in the Georgia game, they're all compact, they're all behind the ball, they're all in like a phalanx, you know, they're behind, you know, there's a row of 5 and a row of 4 and then the one striker. And you're looking at a wall there that, you know, there's no space to chase people. All you're able to do really is prod and probe. And ultimately where we failed was we weren't good enough on the night to unpick that and to get the goal or get the goals that we needed. Losing the first goal was critical. We knew that before the game, and when we we lost the first goal, you think, oh, you know, here we go. But, you know, there was no capitulation, there was no downing of tools or lack of attitude. The boys were trying very, very hard, and they were as disappointed, obviously, as anyone could possibly be about the result.
Yeah, I mean, do you think maybe that, you know, the manager's explanation, and you guys, the footballers, can understand it, you know, the difference between changing the outcome of the game is a yard here, a tackle there, you know, a quicker movement to get on the end of something. It's almost as if it was frowned upon, that, you know, it was looked upon as an excuse, you know, for an inept display. Whereas, you know, I think Gordon was trying to highlight, you know, there was one sliding challenge into the penalty box where we almost scored, but the passes just didn't seem to click on the night.
I think the quality of the final pass was the thing. You know, at half time I made the point, you know, that we had gotten into several, you know, this was in the first half before, you know, Georgia really got deep. You know, in the second half they were camped in, as they say, you know, about parking the bus. You know, they had parked a couple of buses, you know, and it was going to be difficult. But in the first half, when there was a little bit more space, we get down the right-hand side with Alan Hutton, we get down the left-hand side. A couple of times we got in, and what happened then was, when we had at times 3 people in the box perhaps, we overhit the cross, or the final ball wasn't good enough. That was a criticism at half-time. It was an observation at half-time that we needed to improve in that. Second half was different because we didn't really get behind them, and it was all in front of them because of the way that they set up. But there's absolutely no doubt about it that where that quality of those balls in the first half, if they could have been better, then we might have got something in the first half.
I don't want to, you know, want to bring you guys in on this, but just on the point, Poland come calling. They're at Hampden Park. We've already chatted on countless occasions the amount of countries or clubs that can go away from home and play in a match and quite simply sit in and hit on the counter-attack. Do we have to take the game to them? Do we have to do something radically different? Because they, I would imagine, I think we all agree, are a step up from Georgia.
Yeah, they are, but you know, we're also a step up from how we played in Georgia. You know, so we've shown that we can match Poland. We've beaten them and we've drawn them the last 2 times we've played them. So I think that we have no reason to think that we can't do that again. They won't approach the game the same way as Georgia. You know, Poland aren't going to come here with Lewandowski and people like that and sitting. They're going to come here and think they can beat us. You know, and they're going to probably come here thinking they've got to beat us because they don't know what's going to happen with Ireland. So they're going to come here, and it will be a slightly more expansive game than you saw in Georgia. Whether it'll be quite like the Germany game, I'm not sure, because Germany are a team who approach it in a way they think that no matter what they score, what we score, they'll score more.
Yeah.
You know, now Poland won't be quite like that, because I think Poland will know that if we get the first goal, then they'll find it difficult, you know, and we might then play through them, because we can do that, we're capable of that. So I think it won't be quite as defensive a game. I think Poland will come here thinking that they want to win the game, and with the quality of players that they do have up front, they probably think they can.
Can I ask you, Mark, is that a worry to the coaching staff, the striker position? Or not a worry, or is it just on the day when you assess the players, when they turn up and who's playing well or not? Because the thing in everybody's mind is the goals. We're getting 1 goal, possibly not 2. So is it just depending on the day who you think?
Well, I think that, you know, the manager will have a kind of list in his head prioritised, and he'll know who he thinks is his best centre forward. So far, it's been Stephen Fletcher who's been selected, and you know, we think that he's done well. Now, he's not necessarily scored goals, but you know, he's an integral part of how we play. You know, and we need that sort of player in that position to play the way that Gordon wants to play. We need somebody that can link the play, but can also take the game behind the back 4 and run them a bit, you know, as well, to stretch the game for us. So to a degree, Stephen Fletcher can do both. So he remains the favourite to play even against Poland, where you've got someone like, say, Chris Martin, who we know is brilliant at holding him. I watch Chris a lot for Derby. He holds the ball up, he brings people into play. He doesn't quite run behind people the way Stephen Fletcher can. Then you've got Lee Griffiths, who's a slightly different player again, who at the moment is playing brilliantly for Celtic, and I think Celtic have done great work with him. You know, he's running the channels, he's getting across people in goals, he's getting goals, you know. But again, he's not necessarily the player that would play up front. You've then got maybe an option of somebody like Stephen Naismith, you know, who got a hat-trick at the weekend. You know, you can't ignore that. So we do have options, but integral to it will be how we're going to play, and not necessarily the one that we think is going to get the one that's going to get a goal.
You know yourself, Mark, as a striker, I always felt that in terms of picking any team, especially at international level, at times the one position you maybe do need the form player on is striker, because strikers come in out of form. And they kind of a run of goals. And all of a sudden, Stephen Naismith getting those 3 goals. If he goes on a run between now and that game coming up, he's got to come strong into contention.
Absolutely. You know, coming into any game like that with confidence is the thing. You know, that's the thing. You know, if any player is bursting with confidence, then you can't ignore that. It has to be considered for the position. You know, but the games these days, particularly at international level, but in a lot of competitions, you know, are won by 1 goal. You know, in most of the games that have been played in our section, it's a margin of 1 goal. So we're not planning to try and go and beat, you know, Poland 3-0. You know, we can only plan to try and beat Poland by a goal, and if it's 1-0, we have to be prepared for that. You know, and therefore it's not necessarily the player that's scoring goals at the moment. It's the player, as I say again, that makes a system work, that allows Sean Maloney, that allows Ketchianya, Stephen Naismith. You know, those boys who maybe can contribute a goal to get in amongst the positions where they can get a goal.
Yeah. Well, here's the remaining fixtures, and I think if you're a Scotland fan, I think we'd rather be in our position. If we can get the win over Poland, then it's Gibraltar with the Republic of Ireland against Germany, albeit at home, and then of course they've got a tough one against Poland to come as well. With that in mind, fingers crossed, still confident. I still have that belief that we can do it, and good to get Mark McGhee's thoughts on it as well. You can give us your thoughts at Peter and Ruffy on Twitter, and you can also go on facebook.com/Peter and Ruffy. Give us your view on Scotland's group and whether we're going to make that playoff and who you would like to see play. I'm sure Gordon, Mark and Stuart McCall always get more than a few names thrown at them. Coming up in the next part, we're going to talk domestic football. It's all up after the break. Welcome back to Peter and Ruffy's football show this Friday. Don't forget, if you want to cover and get all the information on the Scottish leagues, then stick with us tomorrow. STV Edinburgh, STV Glasgow, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Frank McAvenny will join Gordon Smith and Alan Ruff here in the studio with me, and 2 till 6 will bring you all the scores, every goal as it hits the back of the net across Great Britain, but with the emphasis on Scottish football. And the emphasis falls squarely on the Premiership this weekend, because there is a tasty game. It's a sellout, can't get a ticket for love nor money, and it's taking place on the Sunday at Tynecastle. Here's a look at the fixtures that will get the thoughts of the guys on. Dundee United against Inverness, Hamilton against Motherwell, Kilmarnock against St Johnstone, Ross County, Partick Thistle, but with Celtic obviously playing on the Sunday from their Europa League adventure on Thursday night. They'll take on Dundee. But it's Hearts Aberdeen that we're going to talk about now, lads, because what a healthy situation. You can't get a ticket for Tynecastle, Gordon Smith.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, that's a great thing about both Aberdeen and Hearts this season. They've been piling in the fans, and they're also taking a big away support to games too, so that they're generating money within the league. And as I say, it's good to see 2 teams right up there that are up to challenging, because most of us did feel Celtic will win the league this season. We're not doubting it even yet, but it's going to be a tight battle if Aberdeen can put together some results. If they're to win, they can beat Hearts away from home, and then Hearts will get, I think Hearts next points when they were on them tested. They're going to be tested.
Of course, Mark, just in case you're worried about it. As far as Tynecastle's concerned, as Gordon mentioned there, Euro team Aberdeen, I mean, now, you know what it's like in the Granite City. They are craving the great days to return.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, the sort of anticipation up there. I mean, there's a long part of the season left, you know, but they'll be wishing it away and hoping, you know, come April, and they're still in this position. So far, there's all the evidence that they can be They've improved season on season over the last couple of seasons, a couple of cup finals, and now they're challenging and in fact are 5 points ahead. I mean, I don't think Derek would have dreamed that would.
Don't you cane him as well? He'll go in a half.
Did I say Saturday? I'm going to the game. It's Sunday, I know.
They have a game, that can further strengthen their position. I think there's also a point coming out of that, that Hearts and Aberdeen can sell out. Now, surely that's an indicator that, that Hibs and Rangers and the top teams have to be in the top division. We have to, as quickly as possible, get these teams in, because these are Hibs and Aberdeen and Rangers and Celtic, and I think that the league needs as many of those head-to-heads as possible. So the quicker these teams are back, the better.
But just on that point, and I don't want to take it too far away from the domestic issues here. Yes, we want those teams back in the top flight, but we don't want, I think, Mark, to go back to a situation where, I mean, right now I think there's something like 46% of Scottish players playing in the top flight. We don't want it to get to a situation where as money starts to trickle back into the game, suddenly you've got a smaller pool of players to pick from, because once again they start going to foreign players and not giving the Scottish talent a chance.
I mean, this is a point of debate that we could go on all day, because there's all sorts of aspects to this. We have to be absolutely, honest and say, look, when we pick a squad. Mark Reynolds from Aberdeen's been in a few squads. A few of the Dundee United boys were in prior to that. After that, really, it's a couple of players or 3 players from Celtic. So there aren't players from other clubs breaking in yet, even though there are 46% of the players playing in the division Scottish.
Yeah.
The thing is about quality. Whatever we have %. Celtic players, playing against the, better players, playing against better teams. Surely Aberdeen doing what they're doing at the moment is going to stretch the Celtic players. It's going to get more out of them, because they're going to have to take this challenge on. So I think that's true of everyone. So yeah, we want 46% and more, but we want more from the Scottish north of the border in the national squad. But it has to be about the quality. Yeah.
OK, this game, might as well get your prediction on it, Mark. How do you see it going, Hearts Aberdeen at Tynecastle?
Well, I think Hearts have dipped a little bit. They're not from the strong start they made. They're not been quite as strong in the last couple of weeks. Aberdeen are flying. I think they'll get the bit between their teeth, and I think again I cannot see them. I cannot see past Aberdeen.
Gordon?
Yeah, I think it will be very tight though, because I think that look at Aberdeen. After beating Celtic, they had Hamilton Accies, who had been hammered in Saturday with St Johnstone, and yet only won 1-0 with a penalty. So Hearts will be up for it and playing it really tight. But I think Aberdeen, if I had to tip them to win, I'd say Aberdeen by a goal.
OK, let's look at Ruffy's predictions against mine, because he's out in front at the moment. He's way out in front, and of course, look, he's got his tongue firmly in his cheek there, as if to say he's going to win by the end of the season on that picture. But Ruffy, I tipped a draw with Hearts Aberdeen, but suddenly I've made a quick change over 24 hours. I slept on it last night and decided Aberdeen are going to win it.
I think, like most of the boys, it is a test. It's a test for Aberdeen as well. Unfortunately, the test for Aberdeen is every game they play now, we're going to say it's a test, because they're going to have to keep winning. The fail last year was dropping points here and there, and if they're going to challenge Celtic, they need to go to Tynecastle and win these games.
I can't believe you've tipped Partick to get beaten tomorrow.
Yeah,
well,
that's so unusual for Ruffy. He always tips Partick to win it every week.
Yeah, we're not at tomorrow yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just looking there. I hate to kind of quote other programmes, but week number 454, and eventually Ruffy goes against this. They've played.
He has given something the favour. He's got them to score a goal tomorrow.
Yeah,
maybe he's going for reverse psychology. If you predict him to lose, the win.
That's maybe it is.
Well, it's tough times for Alan Archibald's men. But you can find out on the Saturday programme. 2 o'clock we kick off on STV Edinburgh and STV Glasgow in the Championship. Well, Mark, have you been surprised in the transformation of Rangers? They look as if they've got the capability to run away with it. Everybody's wondering whether Falkirk can still hang on to their shirt tails, if Hibs can start to, mount a challenge.
I'm not being surprised, because I expected them to be improved, under the new manager. I saw them at Ibrox early in the season against St Mirren. I saw their style, I saw their system of playing, and I thought it was excellent. You know, their movement. They had a couple of moves that night. Had it ended in goals, which it could easily have done, would have been, you know, contenders for goal of the season already. You know, they really, some of their interplay and their movement was excellent, and you can see it coming from the training ground. So I think they will be.
Will come when Rangers win silverware.
Into how you deal with the role here, David, myself and the staff, how we deal with it, what changes we make, what philosophy we can put into place and build upon to establish it and develop it. There's many things you judge on, I'm sure. How you handle this side of things is important in the Rangers' position, but I think we have to obviously win something and move the club forward.
Can you see Dumbarton stopping them tomorrow, Gordon?
I can't. No, honestly. I mean, they won, even last year when Rangers went at their best, they won the 4 games against Dumbarton. So I can't see any different tomorrow. I think that the sort of form they've been in, I can see them winning by a few goals tomorrow. Okay,
we did indeed run into Jim Duffy, the Morton manager, ahead of this one. They've got a trip to Queen of the South. Here's a look at the fixtures for the championships. St Mirren Wraith Rovers tonight, Alloa against Falkirk, Dumbarton Rangers, Livingston against Hibs, and Queen of the South against Morton. Your old team are at Livingston. Ruffy, the High Bees, if we're talking about hitting a bit of form, are they starting to get into that little purple patch now?
Yeah, I think they're starting to win games, you know, comfortably, whereas last year they were hanging on to 1-0s and losing goals late on. So they've got the wee boy Cummins scoring goals again, and obviously Liam Henderson coming into the fore as well. So, you know, I think everything's looking good there. But again, they're the kind of team that were dropping points to teams like Livingston last year, and they'll have to stop that if they want to hang on to Rangers.
Okay, well done to Dick Campbell, Ruffy, League One Manager of the Month. I'm sure he'll open the champagne himself and just wallow in it. He deserves it.
I'm sure. I just wonder where he keeps all these Player of the Months, because he's certainly won a few of them right through the divisions. So, no, all credit to him. He works very hard.
Must be one heck of a mantelpiece in Dick's house, but congratulations to him anyway. Great to have Mark McGhee with us. We've booked him on a flight via Tbilisi to go back to his home, so you'll see him probably next Thursday. Delighted he could join us. Gordon Smith will be joined by Frank McAvenny and Alan Ruff. You can join us Saturday afternoon. 2 o'clock we'll kick off. We'll look at all the games. We'll reflect on St Mirren against Wraith Rovers, and we'll look at the big game on Sunday at Tynecastle. Hearts against Aberdeen. Who's going to come out on top? Join us tomorrow if you can. Thanks for watching.